Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the week where we get to take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, we're going to start off with a knife that I am really excited about and I think turned out really cool. This is the new Viper Turn. Now you may have seen this knife before. We actually had a chance to help debut this knife during our Blade Show Week coverage. I say quote unquote since there was no actual Blade Show last year. But we had a video interview with Valentina and the folks over there in Italy with Viper for this knife, and they're finally hitting the shelves. And just look at how cool these turned out. Now there's a few different options available. Prices range from about $210 to about $250. $250 on the higher end would be this particular example with the red lava carbon fiber. Looks really cool. And then the blade shape, it's just got a stunning look. About 3¼ inches, M390 steel. And the shape really reminds me a lot of, not something you see too much of in production level folders or even fixed blades for that matter, but it reminds me a lot of what you see from the ABS Smiths in the fixed blades that they do. Not everyone has an identical style, of course, but this is kind of a vibe you tend to get because it's just got a lot of appeal. Beyond that, of course, it's going to be very usable shape, just a classic clip point with a little bit of a downward angle to it from the handle. It's going to work really well with that high flat grind and the full length swedge. It is a lockback design, mid-mounted, and as you can see, you've got some of those typical Italian crowned edges all around on the back spacer into the spine of the knife. Now the jimping here actually bisects, some of it's on the blade, some of it's on the back spring, and unless you're looking really, really closely, you can't even see the seam where the blade meets the back spacer. It's really finely done. Now the operation of this knife, it's a very smooth one-hand opener, which for a lockback, usually you get a fair bit of tension when you're going to open the blade with a thumb stud type of setup, which you see here, dual thumb studs in fact. But you've actually got ball bearings in this pivot, and that may not be all of it, but that's at least part of why you can actually flick this blade open. It's got a very smooth path of travel as it's working. Now it works really well on the close one-handed as well, since that lockback is mid-mounted, and you got some jimping on there to help you locate it by feel. I can very easily reach with my index finger that thumb stud. So when you push that button in, you can start rotating it closed with the index finger, finish the job off quite easily. Now, as I said, there are some different handle options. All of them get this titanium with the titanium bolster, integrated titanium bolster actually, a little bit of a contour to it. But the inlays change up. Like I said, red lava carbon fiber here, but there's also G10, micarta, and some wood options. And depending on which handle option you get, you're either going to get a sheath, or instead of a sheath, you're going to get a pocket clip. This one is one of the pocket clip varieties. Right side only, unfortunately it's not left side, even though everything else is ambidextrous, but it's very deep carry as you can see, and actually anchors in to the back side of the inlay essentially, and then is nestled in underneath. So really nicely executed for sure. Now, some of the other options, like I said, get a sheath. This is the walnut wood inlaid version. Really nice look. And with that, you get this leather sheath. It's just a simple slip style of sheath, but the loop essentially can allow you to carry it both horizontal and vertical, which is quite nice. But they look great. The execution is darn near flawless. They even feel good in the hand. There's just enough length there for all 4 of my fingers. And man, it's gonna work really well. Kind of almost a gentleman's tactical folder, ready to rock for sure. One more quick note before I move on to the next. The red lava carbon fiber version, this very one in fact, we're giving this knife away over on our Instagram channel. So make sure to click the link in the description to take you over there to get your chance to enter on that. For those of you that don't use Instagram, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's where this one is getting given away. Thanks to our friends at Viper who gave us this to give it to you guys. So like I said, check that out. All right, next we're gonna look at some real high-end stuff. I've got a few folders here from Cheburkov Workshop, and this first one is the Russian Flipper coming in at about $9.95, so quite expensive, but quite well executed too. 3¾ of an inch of blade, M390 steel, and a very distinctive swooping profile overall. It's got a very fine finish with that high flat grind. It's going to work really well for EDC. It's going to have a good type of geometry for longer slices. Little bit of belly. It's going to allow the edge to kind of follow you as your hand goes through, but with the tip being dropped like that, very easy to keep your blade inside of the cut without it slipping out. Construction here is titanium with a green carbon fiber inlay on both sides. A little bit less on the back side than the front. In a way, it's almost like an inverse in terms of the shape there near the leading edge, but I think it looks really cool. I really like this green color. It's not super vibrant, but the shimmer is nice and has a very kind of lustrous quality to it. As you can see, we've got this very big lanyard already attached from the factory. I'd probably wind up removing that. There's a kind of a lot going on there, but it does show you that we've got a nice hidden lanyard point there at the back. Now the lockup here is nice and solid. I've said of some Shirogorov knives in the past that if Chris Reeve were to ever make a flipper, that's kind of what you would get with the Shiros. Get a little bit of that with this knife as well, and at this price point you really ought to, so it's a good thing. Also, like those Shiros, a very fine edge. This may in fact be even finer than a lot of the Shirogorov edges out there. Just ready to slice. It's going to be like a scalpel almost, but you're going to be backed up by a decent amount of thickness at the spine for some rigidity as well. And like those Shiros as well, flipping action is quite good. I really like the flipper tab here. It's just a subtle piece here sticking out. Not a big jutting horn or anything like that, just a little bit. It works quite nicely. All right, if you like this shape in general, but you don't have the better part of $1,000 to spend, this one's maybe a third less, or just over a third less. Still expensive. This is the Cobra flipper from Cheburkov, coming in at $625. A little bit smaller, we've got about 3.6 inches of M390, not quite as broad either, but a very similar kind of upswept shape going on. Nice thin edge, not quite as thin as the Russian here, but I really like the finish on this blade. It's almost, and I'm going to use this word not in any kind of negative way whatsoever, but it's got an almost pitted look to it, kind of rustic in a way, almost like the after effects of the heat treat process. But you see it here on the main grind as well as the flats at the top. It's got a really nice look, almost a matte, somewhere between a matte and a stone-washed type of vibe. I really like it. Handles are simpler, no inlays here, but it's still titanium. Decent bit of thickness, so you've got a fair amount of grip on this knife given its slender profile, and the slender profile when it's folded up is quite nice too. Milled pocket clip, just like the more expensive one, and it's not an identical flipper, but you've got a similar kind of low profile, unobtrusive flipper on the side. That still works quite well. We've got a liner lock on this one, but it's an inset liner, as you can see, with a decent bit of thickness. All you can see is just the tip of the lock bar there. The rest of it's nestled right inside the titanium, but it looks cool. It's, you know, there's certainly frame locks on the market that aren't quite as thick as that liner is. Good lockup, good smooth feel overall. Very nice. But if you really don't have that kind of scratch, but you still like that kind of shape, this one is much more within reach. This is the Kizer clutch, coming in at $165. The blade here is about 3 3/8. We've got S35 VN. Nice two-tone finish. You've got satin grinds, horizontal satin grinds on the flats, and stonewash texture on the ground portion. Still got a decently thin edge on this knife as well, and a similar type of upsweep to the belly with a downturned tip as well. The handles are also titanium. We've got micarta inlays on these, and they have a cool ridged texture. Reminds me almost of kind of an imitation of like African kudu horn or that sort of thing. You see that on the back as well. Although with the pocket clip there, they made sure to leave the that milled texture stopping just shy of the tip of that clip, so you're actually going to be able to use it more easily in and out of the pocket without, you know, your pants getting chewed up or even just caught up on this texture. Now, in terms of feel in the hand, it's obviously not a smooth texture, so you're going to get a little bit more friction there. If you're putting this into some really hard use, you know, maybe it might give you some hot spots. But I don't really see this as a hard use knife, although you certainly could. It's certainly got the lockup and the construction to do it. But if you're wearing a pair of work gloves, this texture is going to be actually pretty perfect because you'll get that extra traction. It's not going to bite into you either at the same time. This is another knife. I really like the nice slender profile when it's folded up. It's going to be very easy to carry in the pocket. And then of course, ball bearing pivot, nice crisp flipping action as you would expect from any quality Kizer. All right, for roughly the same price, coming in at $169 right now, we've got the Latt Vind from Kizer. We've got kind of an interesting blade shape going on here. It's almost a spear point, but it reminds me a lot more of kind of old school bushcraft knives in a way than it does, you know, modern flippers, but this is certainly a modern flipper. But those bushcraft knives had those kinds of shapes for a reason. It's because this is a very usable shape with that drop to the point and the full flat grind. You've even got a crowned spine all along here, so it's going to be a very comfortable to use and very versatile all around shape. The handles are titanium, black in this case with some milled cutouts. And you've also got, not just black, but you've got this stripe running down the front side, which looks pretty neat. Kind of neat to see something a little different than just a plain black or a plain silver handle. Kind of spice it up just a little bit. Now you've still got ball bearings in the pivot and a frame lock, but the opening methods in this case is quite interesting, or are quite interesting. It's two different ones. Obviously you can tell immediately that this is a front flipper, and you folks know that I'm not the best at front flippers, and then I usually am able to get the front flipper on camera. This one is a little more finicky for me. Let's see, I can slow roll it, but I can't really flick it. But in addition to that, you can also flip it with your index finger, kind of conventionally, with this very, again, nice subtle flipper tab going on. This one does require a little bit more effort to use. You kind of got to, get used to the angle on this one a little bit, but once you do, it does work quite nicely. In terms of handle length, I've got enough to grip there. I do have slightly larger than average hands, and I've got plenty of length. And it's got kind of a neutral shape to it as well, which is going to make it work nicely in a bunch of different hand grips and shapes. It's just going to work. Same as the blade, just simple and versatile. It's kind of taking some classic inspiration on paring down what a knife should be. And no, I didn't even mean to make a pun right there. Back to the blade. I didn't even mention S35 VN. About 3.5 inches of it. It's gonna work really nicely. All right, next up I've got two more Kizers. This is a new design, and I'm gonna show them to you folded first because there are two versions. This is the Catshark, and you've got the standard flipper version, as well as a front flipper version. These come in at $79 right now, and these are a detent joint style of non-locking knife, and what's kind of cool is you can actually see the opposite side of that detent bar from the outside. It's not something you typically get to see. Usually it's nestled in the liners. So that's a pretty neat little visual aspect there. As far as the opening action, I'll do the flipper version here first. Actually flips open quite nicely. And you can see that kind of detent bar drops in a little bit as the knife is open. It's not locking the blade open, it is just that detent holding it there, but you do see the movement. You can also see that deep carry pocket clip on the back there while we're at it. Now the construction here is titanium, and the back scale essentially has a light duty pry bar integrated into that back end there, since it sticks out further than the front scale, which in this case is black micarta. We've also got a bit driver integrated into that pry section. And what's interesting as well, let me open this back up, it also comes with a tiny ferro rod, which may seem kind of odd, but you can actually stick it through this hole here to give yourself, essentially some locking functionality. It doesn't quite snap into place, so just be careful when doing this. And what I would also do, if you want to use this more regularly, make sure to attach that with a lanyard. Otherwise, you probably wind up losing this piece. Now, one thing to note, you can see here there is that hole in the blade where it goes through. When it's closed up, that's not going to do anything. You can still actually open it, but not all the way until you move that out of the way. So keep that in mind too if that's your thing. I'll move back over here to the front flipper version. You actually get an extra tool here on that front flipper. It's going to work as a bottle opener as well. Now I can't quite flick that front flipper open, but you can also do the standard thumb studs, or the thumb cutout there as well. Now this version has gray G10, as well as just a standard colored titanium as opposed to black titanium for the back spacer. But enough about the handles. We actually haven't talked about the blade at all yet. So let's do that now. Length is just under 2 inches. You've got N690 steel and a really nice hollow grind. You can actually see it pretty well from the spine. So you've got some really good geometry right behind the edge. They kept that quite thin as well. Now, either one of these knives, because it's non-locking, you always have to be careful when you're using it, but they both have the advantage of, in a natural type of hold, your index finger on the front flipper is going to be here in this large choil, so if the blade does disengage, your finger is going to be in the way to stop it. And that's actually the same thing is true with the standard flipper version, but you don't even have to be using that front choil if you're just using it in kind of a 2.5 finger grip behind the flipper. That flipper is going to run into your finger before the blade goes any further too. So these are pretty neat. Definitely an interesting design. That is the Catshark coming in at 79 bucks. All right, last but not least, in terms of the Kizers this week, we've got some new entries into the CyberBlade series coming in at 89 bucks. And this version has natural micarta for the handles. And because it's a very angular cut or an angular shape to the handles themselves, you don't see a lot of kind of wavy topography that you might get from something like this, which we'll look at here in a second. But instead you get these very stark delineations on the lines between the layers of the micarta there, which I think works pretty nicely. Blade shape, definitely unusual for sure. Just over 2 inches, M390. Obviously automotive design has played a big part in influencing knife designs over the years, but I would never have really guessed that Tesla's Cybertruck would really kind of imply or inspire some blades like this, but that's pretty much all I can think about, especially with a name like CyberBlade anyway. In terms of use, you do have a nice broad handhold because of that shape. It's kind of a 3.5 finger grip for my slightly larger than average hands, but a lot of confidence in there. And if this type of blade shape is going to do what you want, you're going to be able to put it to use quite nicely. Obviously, it's going to be pretty good at push cuts because of that nice straight edge there, and also some chisel-y types of scraping cuts using the leading edge of that tanto as well. We've got an inset liner lock here as well. Closes up quite nicely. Now, as far as opening the blade, you've got a single thumb stud there, mounted from the spine of the blade, but it is only right side biased, and it kind of color matches the handle. You've also got that huge blade cutout. You certainly could use the do the middle finger flick with that. I find it a little easier to just kind of slow walk the thumb stud. Single position pocket clip. It's embedded in the back here into a little channel, and you can see we got a glass breaker back there as well, which, you know, if this is the Cybertruck CyberBlade, maybe you need a window evasion tool if something bad were to happen. But yeah, a bunch of different versions of this have been out. Some of the new versions right now have joined the ranks, and that micarta I think looks especially cool. All right, this next one I'm really excited about. You guys know I'm a fixed blade guy. Well, we've got the new versions of the SE4 with S35 VN blades. As you can see right here, this one even has the first production run logo stamped into, or lasered into the front. Now, these definitely offer a significant benefit in edge retention over the standard 1095 versions of the SE4. The trade-off, of course, being these aren't going to be as tough, but they do still have that nice SE lifetime warranty as well. 3 different versions right now. You've got the standard flat-handled versions in micarta or orange G10. Those come in just under $140. And you've got the much preferable, to at least my hands, the 3D contoured G10 version coming in at about $154. These handles, I think, go a long way to feeling very comfortable and locked into the hand. Just a nice feel overall. And it's still going to fit the standard sheath, so they didn't even have to come up with an extra part for that. Speaking of which, I've got it over here. Simple and versatile. Of course, it comes with a clip that you can attach to this to put on your belt, or even carry inside the waistband. And this whole pattern is going to fit a large tech lock if you want something a little more locked down on your belt. But the blade shape, classic SE4. You've got about 4 inches of usable edge. Stainless, so you don't need the coating in this case like you do on a lot of the 1095 versions. And I really like the stone washed finish you get on these. Great working finish. It's going to hide scratches as you use it. And this is a knife that's certainly begging to be used. Now, one of the reasons I'm actually really excited to see this knife in this steel is, if you remember about a year ago, they released the new Zancudo fixed blades and a version of the SE3 with this steel. And initially they were like, I think this is just going to be it. We're going to do this batch, and we're not going to bring out any more models or even keep making this model in that steel. But they kind of changed their mind and went back to it and decided, you know what? This is something we're going to offer more regularly and on more models. So that's really cool. This is what I like about esee. They listen to folks like you out there who love their products and want to see some cool stuff. So that's even more reason to love this knife. All right, last but not least, I've got a few new CRKTs here. We're expecting the bulk of their 2021 lineup to be landing here, hopefully within this month of January. But I've still got the samples that we filmed our interview with them a couple weeks ago. Make sure to check that out if you want to see even more of the lineup. But right before I have to ship these samples back, I wanted to show you a couple things again. Obviously, the thing that's made the biggest splash is this knife, the CRKT Ritual and Alan Foltz design. These come in at $85. Obviously, a very distinctive shape going on. About 4.4 inches of steel, and that steel's 12C27 by Sandvik as well. Now the handles have a very distinctive look as well, definitely matches the blade. And you've got sort of an ivory paper micarta type of material, and bolsters and backspacer, which have this nice blue coloration as an accent. Now what's cool about this knife, apart from the cool shape, is, well, there's a couple things. First, it's an assisted knife, but it's got a bias that pulls the blade closed. So there's a lot of folks out there, pardon me while I do that again, that don't like the resistance that comes with an assisted opening knife. Now this knife still has that a little bit, but right there near the end, the spring assist actually assists in the close as well, which is pretty cool. But the other cool thing is, just look how actually compact that knife folds into itself. You know, we pull this out of the pocket, yeah, it's definitely gonna look impressive, but you're probably not going to expect all that. But very cool knife, coming in, like I said, about $85 right now. Certainly a statement piece from CRKT for 2021. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, moving on to the next knife. In my mind, I think the biggest news from the new lineup is the new Flipper version of the CEO, which actually maintains the same price as the original thumb stud version at about $40. Now here is that original. I'll hold them up. As you can see, they've got pretty much identical profiles, but they're slightly different. For one thing, you can see here at the front of the handle, they kind of knocked this corner back instead of having it just one angle as on the thumb stud version. As such, that technically makes the handle a little bit shorter, but they've also managed to make the blade just a tiny bit longer as well. So you've got even more capability built in. And you've also got AUS 8 steel here rather than HCR 13 MOV, which molecularly are very similar, but AUS 8 comes from one Japanese company, and the quality of that, you've got nothing to worry about whatsoever. I also like the grinds on the new knife. The flat grind on it is a little bit higher, and it feels a little bit more precise than the original as well. So you've got, a little bit more added value there and a little bit better slicing geometry, and they still maintained that full-length swedge. Still got a nice liner lock, right hand biased, but the pocket clip is now lefty friendly as well. And it's tip up carry, which a lot of folks didn't like the tip down nature of the original. It's mounted here from the back, so it is very truly deep carry, and as you can see, quite reversible as well. As far as the flipping action, no assist here. You've got just their IKBS bearings, which come together for a very flippable knife. It's not so much a light switch, it's a little bit more of a push type of motion on that little on that flipper tab, but I could get really used to that. It works really nicely. Now the CEO, of course, was designed by Richard Rogers, and he's got a few new things in their lineup this year, one of which is the Symmetry. This knife also comes in at that same $40 price point, and this is a non-locking knife. This is one of the detent joint style of knives, kind of like that Catshark from earlier. Instead of a single detent, though, you've got dual detents on this, and a really cool looking, I guess we're calling it a top flipper, sticking out here near the top. You could certainly do the front flipper type of motion with it. Again, pardon my my awkwardness there, but it also works really well as a standard flipper. Blade steel here is HCR, but the length is under 3 inches as opposed to that new CEO whose length is officially about 3.35 on that knife. Still got a nice usable shape here, hollow ground with a swedge in this case. You can see also on the back here, you've got their logo for IKBS, which means you've got ball bearings here. Helps it slide open, helps it flip open quite easily. It's a stainless steel handle, and you've got inlays on each side, which is a glass-filled nylon material, sort of a mimicked carbon fiber type of look to it. But I really like the way it accents off these blue pieces in terms of the hardware, the small lanyard hoop at the back, and the standoff pocket clip with the two standoffs there. That's why I called it that. Which is also reversible in this case, so lefty friendly for this knife as well. Really, really cool little design. All right, one of the other big pieces of news this year from CRKT is their second generation of Ken Onion's field strip technology, which is something that allows you to take the blade or take the knife apart really simply without any tools into 3 distinct pieces. Works really well for being able to wash something out, keep it cleaned, lubricated, that sort of thing. Now, we showed you the Bonafide in that CRKT interview. That's one of Ken's new designs featuring this technology. But I wanted to show you a different one now. This is the Cottidae from Jesper Vaknes, and it comes in just under 90 bucks right now. Now, unlike the original field strip, there's only one switch in this case. You don't have a switch by the pivot and a wheel here at the back. Instead, this will work open and close, but I'll close the knife. I will close the knife up for this. This slider, essentially, you push it up and then towards the pivot. That's it. You can just lift that piece off, lift the blade out, and you've got those 3 pieces, very easy to clean. A few other upgrades as well. You can see here, IKBS bearings in the pivot. It's no longer those nylon washers that you would get on the previous versions. But it will work open or closed, like I said, so let me put it back together open so I can show you that. Just slap the scale on, pull the tab back, push it down. That's it. It's really nice, really intuitive to use, and it comes back together just as evenly as the original field strips did. As far as the rest of this knife goes, we've got a D2 blade here, coming in about 2.6 inches, so a little over that 2.5 inch mark. And you can still get a full 4-fingered grip on this thanks to the nice, essentially long, flat choil here right in front of the flipper tab. Gets you some really good access onto that really nice little kind of small drop point blade shape going on. Nice full flat grind, D2 steel. It's definitely going to be ready to work. And last but not least, is probably one of my favorites from the new lineup. It's the new Pilar III from CRKT. Obviously, you had the original Pilar, which had a smaller blade, the Pilar Large, which had a larger blade, which was almost the same length as this actually, but the Pilar III maintains kind of a longer blade, just under 3 inches in this case, but it's a narrower profile overall. It's not quite as pocket cleavery as the original Pilars are. Instead, you get this really nice kind of modified Wharncliffe shape. I guess almost a drop point, but maybe a little bit more Wharncliffe-y in its nature. There's also 2 tiers of this knife. At about 40 bucks, you can get it with 8CR steel, or for about 54, you can get it with D2 steel instead. Stainless steel frame lock, IKBS bearings in the pivot, and check out that lock bar release. You got a couple of nice little kind of big jimps, for lack of a better word, or scallops perhaps there, right on the lock bar cutout. Makes it very easy to use, looks pretty nice too. The D2 version also gets a brass backspacer, which looks really good. And you've got a nice deep carry pocket clip there, which is inset with some flush screw head, so it's going to be very easy to use. The opening works very well. Flips open with the middle finger quite easily. And then of course you could slow roll it with your thumb quite well. Actually, I haven't tried to kind of snap it open with the thumb. Let's try that. Yeah, it works too. G10 for the front handle. You've got kind of a 3.5 finger grip on the main section, but you still have that signature choil from the original Pilars. This is one of those that's kind of a little better than the sum of its parts. Just the design is really what elevates this particular knife. It's ready to work, going to be a great new EDC option. All right, that is it for the first new items video of the new year. Hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know what your favorites were down there in the comments, and make sure to let me know what you're looking forward to this year. Hopefully we'll have some really cool stuff to show you real soon. In the meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these, make sure you head over to KnifeCenter.com by clicking the links in the description. And while you're over there, make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program, because if you're going to spend some money on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.